Welcome back to Change India, an agenda for the next Prime Minister, and today we are talking about how to revive investment. We are on to point number 9, which is a critical point. Revisit public-private partnership and try and reform and get rid of the mess that has been created in that sector. Manish, I'll come to you. How to reduce corruption, how to get the stalled ones going, and how to ensure that the next ones that come up are working to a correct template.
Well, difficult area, because it's as you know, the government should be taking the primary risk of setting up large infrastructure projects by vacating the public sector which they own. As in, you develop something, sell it, and let someone else operate it. Whereas here what seems to be happening is, as you realize, you're in a way creating quasi-monopolies or annuities. These are being in a way handed over to people to create these monopolies. That was at least the theory 5 years ago. In practice, what has happened is all the risk has passed on to the private sector. Any delay, any regulatory logjams has meant that these companies have collapsed, or these SPVs have collapsed, and they don't find investors anymore. And because now you still want to protect their interests, these aren't put up for re-auction or for refinancing, or the government doesn't bear part of the losses. And unless we get all this sorted out in the manner I've just described, right, you don't have a hope in hell of getting this revived.
And this is a critical sector. Shogata, for instance, we've just had the instance of the Gurgaon toll road now coming back to the government because the private operator simply could not deliver. So how do we get PPP reformed, public-private partnerships?
So, I mean, one of the things is that obviously, I mean, you need to get the market structures in which these private PPPs operate very, very right. So, as much competition in any segment. So, you shouldn't try to have a large PPP across the board. So, try to figure out segments. In Gurgaon, of course, I mean, the roads are PPP, so you have to have mechanisms by which these PPPs become contestable. That is to say, exactly as you were saying, re-auction them.
Yes, wherever they've run into trouble, we are saying it should be a part of the contract that in about 2 to 3 years, if this project has run into trouble, don't try and reform, put it up for re-auction.
That's exactly it. And then if it gets into trouble, we are sitting in Delhi, the Delhi power discom, say for instance, this has been tried in California. I mean, there are ways in which you look at stranded costs. These things are called stranded costs. So right, you want to put in an actual transparent proper price through which that stranded cost can be recovered.
Right. Okay, so this is a nitty-gritty thing for the new Prime Minister, but something he'll just simply have to get done because there's too much capital and energy lying locked in this sector. Last point for the Prime Minister, and a big one, reform labour laws, because this is something which comes in the way of everything. What we've suggested something very practical, and I'd then like to take it to our experts. We've said, if you try and reform it for the people who are currently in the labour force, you will have endless debates, endless agitation. So people who are currently in the labour force, leave them exactly as they are under the old law. But for new people who are getting employed in the economy, bring a new law. This is technically called grandfathering. Just grandfather the existing people under the old law and bring in a new law. Vivek.
Quickly on the grandfathering, someone might very well go to court under Article 14, but I think it's tenable because we've done something similar for pensions. But on labour laws, 3 very quick points, because I think we need to approach it at 3 different layers. The ideal one would be to change the 7th schedule and move labour away from the concurrent list to the state list so that states can do what they want. Amending the 7th schedule is going to take time. So the second way is, if you look at what are the contentious elements of labour laws, they concern essentially industrial relations, Industrial Disputes Act, Contract Labour Act and the Trade Unions Act. The rest of it, there is no great resistance to unifying and harmonizing. And the final point I want to make is, even on the Industrial Disputes Act, Chapter 5B of the Industrial Disputes Act, the resistance is much more for closure, and we can therefore unbundle the closure part from the layoff and the retrenchment part. One of the reasons why we haven't been able to get labour market reforms going is because we've regarded it as an integral whole. Instead, we need to chop it up into different segments.
And bring in smaller reforms in smaller areas. Shankar.
Quickly, I think that it's worthwhile investing the energy in getting the 7th schedule done and move the things to the state governments. Let states decide on labour laws, because they are finally the ones who are implementing the laws.
Right.
What the centre should do is codify welfare and leave it at that. Be the sort of chief priest and let the parish take over.
Currently it's on the concurrent list, is it?
So it should move to the state list.
To the state list.
And the third thing is that infinitely we see that the labor laws we currently have led to more job losses than job creation. So I think that we must
But that
bring
is
it
something, that is
politically,
something.
if we sell it as a job
Yes.
creation,
Yes.
for every time we put in a law and we guarantee we will create so many jobs by
Right.
this. We are the only country where 90% plus are in the unorganized sector.
That's right. Now this is, Dheeraj, to wrap it up for us, what Shankar was talking about and what Vivek actually has written a bit about, and I've read that, is this, what you think you're trying to do is protect labor. Actually you're not. Actually you're acting against employability when you have these rigid labor laws. People don't quite understand that.
I mean, Raghav, at the end of the day, what is this about? What is investment about? What is growth about? It's about creating jobs. If you don't create jobs for the people, all these things are mere statistics which have no meaning. So, I mean, one interesting statistic is that in 20 years of liberalization, the percentage of the workforce in the organized sector hasn't really gone up. It's still around 8 to 10%. So, in 20 years of all that, we still have only a very small organized labor force.
That's because you made it so
That's
rigid.
because, so that is why labor laws needs to change, because we need people to have faith in the market economy. We need people to believe that the market economy can deliver jobs, and the market economy would deliver jobs if it wasn't for this old socialist labor laws. That's one point. And quickly on the PPP, that's another important point. It needs to be revisited, because that's again about people's faith in the market economy. I think crony capitalism is destructive. It destroys people's faith in the functioning of the market economy. So we must evolve a system where these can be revisited, re-auctioned, so that people believe that markets work, and that's the other efficient way. That is the way India can prosper, and we need to just reignite that faith. And the Prime Minister has to reignite that faith.
And the
for
Prime
us.
Minister is the one person who can if he wants to. So we've spent 1 hour trying to tell the Prime Minister to take 10 steps and get the investment restarted in our economy. Let's hope when he gets into office or she gets into office, they can get it done. Thank you very much for being with us today, for being such a wonderful audience. Stay with us in this series. We'll be back with more agenda items. For now, have a look at all the 10 points that we've suggested to the Prime Minister today.